Let's get started. Again, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Journey, and I'll be the one hosting today's session. Today's webinar is a co-presentation between Vertex 360 and VCCG, and we're tackling a topic that's currently sitting on every desk of every SIL provider in the country. Mandatory SIL registration, Module 5A, the new practice standards, and what audit readiness actually looks like before the deadline hits. So joining me today to break this down is someone who lives and breathes this space. Taymor is our business development manager at VCCG, and he works directly with NDIS and aged care providers, navigating exactly these kinds of regulatory shifts. Taymor is going to be our resident expert for today, walking us through what Module 5A actually requires, what auditors are really looking for, and the gaps that catch most providers off guard. Welcome, Tamer.
Thanks for your comprehensive introduction. Oh, good. So let me just quickly share my screen and we can get started on this. Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing well. And we won't waste any more time and we'll get straight into it. Okay. So, Journey, is my screen visible?
Yes, you can see your screen now, Tamer. Thank you.
All right, perfect. So the topic of today's discussion is the SIL registration that I think most of you have already got your emails from the NDIS. A lot of people are panicking as well, not what it holds. And so registered and unregistered providers alike, there has been a lot of, tackling the issue. I've been receiving a lot of call from a lot of providers, and this I thought would be a great way to sort of explain this to everyone, how these changes are going to work in terms of both compliance, audits, and your day-to-day operations. Right. So let's get started. So we will cover 5 of the most important things regarding this topic today. The first would be your deadlines that you would have received in your emails, what they mean, and how can you navigate them. Second thing is the new practice standards that have come in by the NDIS. So what do they mean? If you're already providing SIL services, do you need to change anything, or does it remain the same? And for people who are not registered providers, what do they need to do to stay registered? Then the third thing is how auditors are actually going to assess this new module 5A in your upcoming midterm and renewal audits. And for those of you who are about to register as a new provider, how would it impact your audit? After that, we're going to go through some of the common gaps that the providers who are already providing SIL services might be able to relate to. So these are some of the common things that we see in a day-to-day activity, working with providers and attending audits as well. And after all of that is done, we'll do a Q&A session. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to pop up that message into the chat. And once we get to the Q&A section, we'll start answering those questions as well. Right. So let's start. So what are the deadlines and what do they mean? So your first deadline that we have is 1st of July. Now, this deadline is for everyone providing SIL services. It might be under the line item 0115, or any services would be categorized as SIL if the majority of the day of the participant is spent with the support worker. So it would be considered as SIL. Now, all of those services will transition into a new registration group, which is called 0138. And in broader terms, it's called Module 5A, the SIL registration module. Now, if you a service provider who is registered for 0115 support assistance with daily living in a shared environment, you don't really have to reply to the email that you received from the NDIS. So if you go into that email and look thoroughly, what it says is you only need to reply to that notification if you wish to remove SIL from your registration. If you don't wish to remove SIL from your registration, after 1st of July, you would be automatically granted a new certificate of registration, which would have the line item 0138 or the module 5A in your certificate of registration. Once you get that new certificate of registration, if you have a midterm or a renewal scheduled between 1st of July and 1st of December, it will be assessed during that audit, and you will have the certification to provide those services. In case you don't have an upcoming audit within this 6-month window, you will still get the new certificate of registration, and you will be able to bill your participants under this, and your new registration group of SIL would be assessed in your next upcoming midterm or renewal audit. Now, another thing you can do is if you have an audit in the month of July, you may be able to talk to your auditor to get it postponed into July so that you can get your SIL module assessed as well, and you don't have to do multiple audits just in case you need to do verification or you want to add SIL later on. Now, the providers who don't have SIL at the moment, or providers who are working as an unregistered provider and are wanting to register because of the deadline, this is much more critical for them because from 1st of July, if you don't start your process and 1st of October hits, you would not be able to claim any invoices for these participants that you are providing services to. And obviously, like you see on the screen as well, if you're providing these services without registration after the deadline, there's legal penalties as well. So we don't want that to happen for any of us, right? Now, so like we already discussed, if the module 5A is applicable to everyone, whether you are registered or you're unregistered, only the process is a bit different. If you already have the registration, you get it amended, and then in your next audit, it will be assessed. If you are not registered, I would highly advise you to start the process as soon as possible because of the deadline, the auditor availabilities are also very packed. So the audits we are trying to get scheduled, let's say this week, we're getting the dates for end of July. And it will move on to August and then September. And by the time in the next few weeks or a month or so, the auditor availabilities will go on to October. So if you hit the deadline, you would then have to wait for your registration to come through before you bill any participant for SIL. So this is very important. Now, moving on to the 4 standards, what do they mean? And if you're a core provider, what sort of changes are there in terms of SIL if you're already providing the service, right? So there are 4 standards that have come into your core module. So they are not replacing the core module. They are on top of your core module. So if you go into the practice standard document, you'll see this core module, then there's module 1, high care, module 2A, module 2 for implementing restrictive practices for behavior support practitioners. Similarly, there will now be a new module under all of this, module 5A. So module 5 is SDA, module 5A will be SIL. So whenever you have your next audit, you will be assessed on these quality indicators that are mentioned in these modules. Right. So let's move on to the first one, which is supported decision making. Now, what does supported decision making mean? In simple terms, when you are providing services to a participant, you have to make sure that you are giving them you're providing them the dignity of risk. You are helping them in making decisions. You are not making the decisions for them. I'll give you an example of this. So if, let's say, you are preparing a meal for a participant, as an example. So if the participant wants to have a lasagna in the evening, and the support worker says, no, you have very high cholesterol, let's get some salad, right? But there's a fine line between telling them about pros and cons and taking away their decision-making ability. So if after you've told them these are the pros, these are the cons, after that you let the participant make the decision. If they still want to eat that lasagna, you can't stop them. So you have done your duty, your due diligence of telling the participant. Now you let them make the decision, an informed decision. Similarly, in terms of day-to-day activities, you have to train your support workers in supporting them in making decisions instead of taking decisions for them. So in terms of documentation, what it would look like, because we talk about these things a lot, but we also have to make sure when we're going through audits and in terms of our policies and documentation, this is reflected as well. So when you are making the support plans, when you are doing the risk assessments, and when you are filling out any incident forms, you have to make sure that these things are being reflected in those documents. Now, moving on to the next standard, which is safeguarding. Now, what is safeguarding? Safeguarding is not just making incident reports and reporting to the NDIS when an incident has happened. What you need to do is have a proactive system in place so that you're mitigating the risks well before they turn into an incident. So when you have a robust system of risk management, you have your policies, you have your business continuity plans, you have your risk registers, you have your incident registers. The staff is trained on identifying if incidents are critical, non-critical, if they are reportable or not non-reportable. All of these things need to be documented. So a thing that you have, I'm sure most of you would have a training and development register, and we normally use it for things like saving their first aid, CPRs, if they've had any trainings, certifications, and those sort of things. But trainings that are pertinent to service delivery are also very important to document. So if you are training the support workers on identifying incidents as being reportable or not, that should be put in the training register. If you are training them on monitoring any environmental risks, that should be put in the register. And if there have been any incidents, the third thing you need to do is add this to your continuous improvement plan. How do you make sure that if a certain incident happened, that it doesn't happen again, or you minimize the risk of it happening again? Right? So this is the the way that you can demonstrate that you are following this quality indicator. So most of you would already have the incident registers, the incident forms, and all of those things, but focus on documenting the evidence that you are using it and you are implementing it. Next thing that we have is practice governance. So what does this mean? This means how you are actually following your policies and procedures that you have. They're not just there to sit in your OneDrive or your SharePoint or your CRM and look good. And a lot of people treat their policies and procedures like Bible. It's not supposed to be touched. It's not supposed to be amended. But this is very wrong. Every company that you get a policy and procedure from, those are templates. Those are standard policies and procedures that implement that apply to every provider, but you have different operational you might have different operations, you might have different procedures. So please make sure you actually look into those policies and procedures and you amend them to how you operate as a company. A simple example of that would be if in your policies and procedures you've written uh, uh, you need to get a working with children check for every staff member, no matter if they're working with children or not. You still require, as a company policy, you require the NDIS check and the working with children check or the police check, for example. Now, even if the NDIS does not require you to have a working with children check, if you have an NDIS check, if you're not working with children, if your policy says that, but you don't get it during the audit, if the auditor sees your policy and then compares it with your worker screening register and you don't have the working with children check, they can give you a non-conformity because that's what your policy says. And if you're not following your policy, you're not compliant. So this means going into the policies and procedures and making sure you understand what they mean. And if there is anything you're doing different as an organization, you need to amend it in your policies and procedures, right? Also, another thing is there are a lot of informal ways when you're providing SIL services. You have WhatsApp groups and all of these things where you interact with the support workers. They give you updates, but it's very important to have a record of these updates. If there's anything important, there should be a register or a log where you are keeping all this information. So in case of an incident or in case of an audit, you can have it handy to provide it to the auditor or the NDIS. And coming on to the last standard, which is agreements about tenancy and housing. Now, this is a topic where there has been a lot of confusion between a lot of providers for a long time. Some providers, when we're doing audits and internal audits, we see that a lot of providers have a combined agreement. So it makes it, but it's correct from your perspective that it makes it easier for the participant to understand and to sign as well. But in terms of compliance, this is not correct. You cannot have a combined service agreement for both SIL services and your accommodation and tenancy. The standard says and the law says that these two services are mutually exclusive. There is a conflict of interest. So when you are providing support services and you are providing SIL services, you need to have separate service agreements to mitigate that conflict of interest. You are actively informing the participant that the services that you're getting from us are not dependent on the accommodation. So if you have a different service provider, you won't be homeless. If you leave the house, we will still support you. So it goes both ways, right? And this is something that the NDIS has emphasized on a lot in this new standard. So we need to make sure that when we are doing service agreements with the participants, they are capturing the preferences of the participant. They are going through the rooming rules, the responsibilities, and all the principles that you follow as an NDI service provider to make sure that they are not being left out of any information. So if you're providing them information on how to make complaints, it should be very clear who they can go to if they want to make a complaint. It should be very clear to them how do they contact advocacy services. It should be very clear to them if there is bullying, if from any other people living in that house, if you have multiple participants there, you need to make sure you are matching the participants when you are putting them in an accommodation. You have to make sure the physical state of that place is up to the compliance standards. So all of these things, I'm getting into a lot of detail now, but in a broader manner, these are the things that you need to take care of to show the auditors and the NDIS that you are complying with the standards. Now, coming on to the third thing on how during your audit this will be assessed, there are four things. These are the four things whenever you are going through an audit, how an auditor validates your claims or your evidence or anything that you've written in any type of format. So, like I was mentioning before, you have your documentation and policies. If you have something in your documentation and policies, it should be reflected in your operational records. So, in your registers, in your shift notes, if you're saying that after a shift for a participant with behavior issues, you need to log their behaviors. In your shift notes, if there is no behavior log, that is a non-compliance. So you need to make sure all of these things are done properly. On-site observations. So in your operational records, if your case notes say that the house had been cleaned 2 times a day or once every day, but when the auditor visits the site, it's not clean. So doesn't matter if your case notes say it, if your policy says you need to clean the house once a day. If it's not clean when they visit, it will be a non-conformity. The last thing is worker and participant interviews. So even if, let's say, going with the same example, cleanliness, you have your documentation that states you have to clean. You have your case notes that say the property was cleaned. You have the on-site observation. The auditor saw that it was cleaned. But when they were interviewing the participants or they were interviewing the workers, the participant says, oh, they don't really clean. They just cleaned recently. So all of the first three things that you have would not matter if this is not done. If you are not recording actual evidence, if your workers, for example, say, okay, we don't really, if the auditor asks them, how often do you clean the house? They say, okay, we do it once a week, but your policy says once a day. So all of these things, you need to make sure they are consistent throughout all your channels of information. This also connects back to your practice standards in your core module for information management. So the information that you're putting in, coming in as input, going out, all of it needs to be very consistent. All right. Now, let's discuss some of the common gaps that the SIL providers see normally. So the most common gap is, and why they receive non-conformances during the audit, is the compliance procedures are in the folders while the staff are behaving differently in practice. Now, I've seen this multiple times with a lot of staff members when I visit a SIL house to inspect it. I would look at the documentation. You would have your emergency disaster plans. You would have your temperature logs for the fridges. You would have your evacuation drills and this and that, and everything would be there. But when I start asking questions to, recently this happened. I went to inspect a SIL house, and the staff member over there, I asked them a question about restrictive practices. So they weren't really sure what a chemical restraint was. And in terms of documentation, they were reporting it monthly. There were policies in place. There was, everything was perfect on paper. But when I talked to the support worker, they weren't really sure what a chemical restraint was. They weren't really sure how often they need to be trained by a behavior support practitioner for that participant. So these are the things that every single thing, from your policies to your documentation to your operational records, your staff, your participant, everyone needs to be aware, everyone needs to be trained. Uh, so this is essentially one of the most common things that I see happening with SIL providers during audits. Second second thing is, going on to the documentation gap. So you obviously now you have your SIL policies coming in, and I'll just put this out there. I got a call from one of my clients today, and they were telling me that one company is offering them SIL policies for something $1,800, and another company is doing it $3,000. So it's just I'll put it out there, the companies whose business is just to sell policies, they would always try to milk you as much as they can whenever they get an opportunity. So this is not, it's not supposed to be $1,800 or $3,000. It's barely, still in the process of making the policies and procedures, because the NDIS has put out the conditional standards. They haven't published them, the finalized version. The auditors have draft guidelines. They don't have the complete guidelines. They'll come by next week. So if someone is offering you to sell the policy right now, one, they might have to make changes if the comprehensive practice standards have some additional items. Second thing is that we are probably going to add it to all of our policies and procedures, and would be giving it to our clients for barely maybe $500 plus GST. So it's not worth that much money, because your main standards are your core module standards, and they cover most of the things. It's just an additional module. So there won't be too much documentation. So don't fall into the trap of getting, paying too much for getting the policies. Now, coming back to the documentation gap. So what is going to happen is, uh, policies that you write, we already discussed before, please make sure that you have separate tenancy and service agreements. You are tailoring policies and procedures to your own company operations. If you have any operations or any procedures that are different from any other providers, they should be added into your policy. Now, also make sure that once these practice standards are out from 1st of July, you are actively scheduling trainings with your staff members who are working at SIL sites. You are explaining them about the new standards. You are telling them about how they can make better decisions, assisting the participants in making better decisions, and how they can make sure that all of these compliance quality indicators are being followed in day-to-day operations. And then once you've done that, record that in your training and development register. All right. Sorry. So just make sure, like it's mentioned over here, make sure you open your tenancy agreement and see that you have clearly mentioned the tenancy rights and the exit conditions on your service agreements. Obviously, when we get to this health checklist of SIL agreements and the SIL standard, will have more things that we will share with you as well. But this is just one of the examples. The second example is the practice governance gap. So you are supervising your workers, you are supervising the team leaders, but it's very informal. So like I said, you have WhatsApp groups, and you are doing incident report, behavior of concern logs, ABC charts through QR codes for every day for a participant who has behaviors, but you are not really analyzing them. So how are you able to make sure when you have an upcoming renewal of the behavior support plan, or you have a NDIS plan renewal, or you have to talk to the support coordinator? How do you explain if the participant is getting better or if it's getting worse, if the trend of the behaviors is going up or going down? So these are the things that you need to make sure that you are actively reviewing. And this would be a huge part of your SIL operations going forward, because as you know, the NDIS has been cutting down funding of different of participants. They're trying to move most of the participants to on 1 to 3 funding, and the only evidence you have of keeping and or maybe due to circumstances growing the plan or getting more funding is to have very robust evidence. And this is where you're already doing it. Most of the providers are already doing it. You just need to have a process where you are analyzing them once a month, once a quarter, making out reports, and then using them in your functional assessment plan reviews and your BSP panel meetings. So just make sure you're doing that. Um, so After all of that is done, a self check you could do right now is can you show an audited three supervision records from the last quarter that demonstrate how staff competency is being built? So you might know you've seen this during your midterm audit, your renewal audits, that the auditors ask for uh, supervisory meeting records. So the supervisory meeting records are not just for making sure you're doing good. Do you need any help? No? Okay. Thank you. And now then you close off the form. What it needs to be doing is you're actively trying to make sure that your support workers are being trained and upskilled and trained on the participants' supports as well, individual supports. So you need to have that evidence. Then moving on to the participant voice gap. So the participants are supported when you talk to them. Participants say, I'm receiving a great service, but you don't have any surveys, you don't have any feedback, any formal feedback, you don't have and even if you have, I've seen a lot of companies who have really great feedback, really great service from participants, but they don't mention them in their management meetings. uh, so it's part of the core module, and it's now part of the SIL module as well. What you need to do is whatever feedback you get, whatever survey, the outcome of the survey you get, you need to discuss these things in your management meetings and make sure that you are implementing those things into the service delivery of the participant. That is your evidence of making sure that the feedback you get from participants is being implemented into your daily services. And that's what proactive service is. So that's, and person-centered supports are as well. So that's what you need to do. Now, if you during this time you've identified that you have these gaps, what do you do to make sure that you are closing them? How long it will take in term, if it's just documentation, it might take you 4 to 6 weeks to scramble and get the policies, build your training registers, and making sure that all of the documentation that you already have is reflected in your registers and your documentation. The next thing, practice governance gaps. That obviously takes some time. You have to train the workers, you have to train the team leaders, you have to train your admin staff, train your managers to make sure you're doing things properly. And third thing is your participant voice gaps. So you can start doing this from today. You can just go back to the surveys and feedback that you have got, and you can start making sure that it is being implemented into your management meetings. Right. And I hope this today, everything that we have discussed has given you some clarification and sort of a direction on where you need to go if you're planning to provide SIL services. And hopefully it helps you in your next audits as well. Now, we've come on to the Q&A section. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and ask the question, whether it's about the registration or the audit or anything compliance related. We would be happy to help. And I'll just have a look at the chat as well. So registration, okay, a lot of people are already registered. So it's the same thing, like I told you, you'll have your new certificate with you, and in your next upcoming midterm or renewal audit, it will be assessed, and you'll have to go through these quality indicators during your audit. Right. So Karen's saying that we already have an audit booked in for August and are not yet registered. Will we get our registration in time for our audit? So Karen, what basically is going to happen is I just want to ask you one more question. In your audit, have you already added your new registration group 138, or have you informed the auditors that you want to add this registration group? If you have already added it, then you don't need to worry. Once your audit is done, it will be you will be able to provide that service, and you will be able to claim those services until you get your registration if your audit was done and the report was submitted before the 1st of October deadline. Okay, if you've informed them, then it's completely fine. So you don't need to worry about anything. Just go through with your audit and you should be able to claim your services if your audit is done, completed, and the report is submitted before the 1st of October. Apart from that, all right, let's go. Do I still need to register for module 5, Lenora? So Lenora, you module 5 is SDA. If you're planning to provide services, if you have an SDA property or you're planning to get one, yes, you can. You need to register. If you're talking about module 5A, if you already have registration for 0115, you don't need to apply for it again. If you don't have it, then you need to register for it. Right?
All right. Thank you.
Now, no worries, no worries. All good. So tenancy and housing, a lot of people are having questions about tenancy and housing. Let me just go through them one by one. Do I still want to know if this is also for participants who have SIL at home? Yes. So in-home services are also SIL services. It does not necessarily have to be services, SIL services plus accommodation. If you're providing in-home services, if they're ranging between 6 to 8 or more hours, it is considered SIL services. So if you look into the definition of SIL, it says if a significant portion of the participant's day is spent with the support workers, it's considered to be a SIL, supported independent living services. It has nothing to do specifically with accommodation. All right. Will they need a lease? Yes. If you are providing a service, if you are providing accommodation, what you would do is you would use the state standard tenancy agreement, whichever state you are in. If you're in Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, your state tenancy agreement will be used to do a private tenancy agreement between the company and the participant. All right. And then if is ILO still if under 8 hours and not all day and night? So ILOs are still under 0115. ILO will still stay in. So your ILOs, your short-term accommodation, your medium-term accommodation respite, all of that will still be claimed under the registration group 0115, not under SIL. If SIL funding is in the NDIS plan, but the participant is not in SIL dwelling, but family members also provide support. Yes, so if SIL funding is in the plan and you are claiming that funding, then yes, you need to be registered for the registration group. So, all right, that's good, all good. So we just need to wait for the next audit. Yes, you just need to wait for the next audit if you have 115. Yes, you need to incorporate all these quality indicators into your service agreement, your tenancy agreements, your policies and procedures, and your training registers. Yes, so you don't have to get an audit again if there is no upcoming audit, normal upcoming audits for you. If there's a conditional audit that you have under your previous registration, you can just add that variation during your conditional audit as well.
Okay, thank you for that,
Exactly.
Tamer. Very informative.
So, Elisa, yeah, I think
We
there
have some
are a few.
preceded questions here. Would you
Yep,
like to
just a second.
share those?
Yeah, we'll go them. We'll go through them. I just want to make sure that I'm answering all of the questions. So a lot of what has been said makes sense. I believe they make sense from the legal aspect to protect both the participant and the support worker and the company. Exactly why this has been happening. You all have seen the news, what's been happening, a lot of people getting caught, and that's why the NDS has to make changes to make sure people are staying compliant. All right, still agreement before. Should we change any info into it? I can't tell you for sure if you have to change anything in your SIL agreement. I would have to review it to see if there's anything missing, and then I can tell you if there needs to be any changes that have to be made in that agreement. If for participants who have SIL at home, does the provider need to be registered? Yes. Can you uh, sure. So, Dr. Atif, yes, that will be sent through to you. Practice standards. Yep. Would this apply to solo support workers? Yes, if you're providing SIL services, yes, it will apply to everyone who is providing a SIL service, even if you're an independent support workers. And Sarah says 115 in my registration. I have a next audit in December, so I need to purchase additional documentation. Yes, you might have to. So if you're doing your internal audits yourself, or if you're using a third party, or if you're using our services, we can tell you, and you can assess, just compare it with the new standards. If everything is all right, you don't need to change. But if anything is missing, then yes, you need to get new documentation. Uh, Comes under 115. It means moving forward, we will have 115 and 138. Yes. So the 115 registration group is not going to go anywhere. It will still stay there. You will have everything else in the same registration group. You will only have the SIL services in the new 138 group. If the participant is using core funding during the day around 6 hours and sleepover, yes, probably. Uh, if that depends on how the core funding is divided. If it's throughout the week, 7 days a week, then yes, it would be counted as SIL. If you're gonna answer, if a participant has 1, 2, 3 for 18 hours a day and lives at home, provided 6 hours of service continuancy. Mary, I don't really understand the last word. So if you can send your question again, I'd be happy to answer. So if you have 18 hours a day, you want to provide 6 hours of service continuously, one-to-one. Whatever your question is, if you can just send me, or I'll share my email. You can call me after the webinar as well, and I can tell you. What you said about the participant living at home with another adult being supported, but supported for 24-hour care, it would be considered SIL. Is accommodation tenancy 101 required to provide SIL accommodation services? No, this registration group 101 has been removed by the NDIS. So when you're applying, you can ask your auditors as well. This is not applicable anymore. You don't need to use this or add this in your registration. Home care, participants live with their family. Yes, it will still be considered SIL. I have already answered this. Any and related to SIL in July, we need to add SIL component to the conditional audit. Yes, you can get it added if your audit is after July. To the new standards after 1st of July. Yes, there will be changes. So the practice standards will change. So obviously there will be changes into the policies and procedures, the audit structure, everything. Home and living package and your unregistered provider, you have to register to provide service, but he was declined SIL plan. So if it's a home care package, then it's not a SIL service. You're not billing under NDIS, so you don't need to register. But if you think that in the future you would get someone, then yes. 12 hours a day in-home support, yes, it is SIL. Do I need to, if Abu and then Gloria says, if I have registered for 115, do I need policies and procedures for 138? Yes, you need to get policies and procedures for 138. Make sure that they are aligning with the practice standards if you're getting it from us or any other company. But just like I mentioned before, just make sure you're not getting ripped off. You're not paying $2,000, $3,000 for a small pack of policies. Lisa says, we have an audit August 2nd, and we will need to be ready for the 5A module. We are still registered. And question 2, yes, you will be assessed under the new 138 group. So yes, you need to prepare for that. Question 2, do solo support workers who work with clients up to 8 hours per shift in and out home community access? If it's just community access, you don't need to register. If it's in-home services, SIL services, then yes, you need to register. and the participant lives at home and not possible to provide the support for them with other participants, can the provider provide 6 hours? So, Marie, yes, you can provide that service long as you have already had discussions with the support coordinator, with the family, everyone's okay with it, the participant is okay with it, and they don't need services more than 6 hours. If they have medication 4 times a day, if you're providing and you are administering the medication and you provide 6 hour a day service, who will administer the medication in the after hours? So you need to figure these things out. If you need to discuss this in details, you can definitely reach out to me and I can explain this to you in detail. If the participant has home care package and you're yep, yep. So Abu, yes, if there's a home care package, you don't need to register. If you think that they will get a SIL plan in the future, or you will get another participant, or you're planning to provide SIL services, then yes, you need to register. But if it's a home care package, it's not related to NDIS, it's related to H care. Yeah. All good. So we're done with the in chat questions, I think. Yes. Any other questions?
Yep, we'll just tackle these two questions. I think these are also important, Tamer. So first
Yep.
one, if we are a small SIL provider with only 3 participants, does this same rule apply to us?
Sorry, I missed your question. Sorry.
Yeah. If we are a small SIL provider with only three
Yep.
participants, does this rule also apply to us?
Yes, if you're providing sales services, yes, it does apply to you. Anyone who is, whether they have 1 participant or 100 participants.
Thank you for that. And one more last question, I guess. Our existing NDIS registration includes other support types. Do we need a separate application for SIL?
Separate application for SIL. No, not a separate application. It will just be assessed with all of your other modules. If you don't already have SIL, then you have to fill out a variation form and then do a variation of your registration.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Taymor. And this has been a fantastic Q&A session.
Newcastle trip. Is that Brendan? I have a question. Can I ask?
Yeah, sure.
Newcastle. Yeah. So
Yeah, go
regarding
ahead.
or is that your personal? Just regarding this SIL, the short-term accommodation, mid-term accommodation, and ILO. Do you think in service in the NDIS plan, these funding will come as hours, like this much hours or this much support, or it will be highlighted as like it is short-term, it is ILO or whatever? Chapman. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, so it basically depends on the type of funding. So if your funding in core is flexible and you have to use it for short-term accommodation or medium-term accommodation, you can use it. If it's stated funding for short-term accommodation or medium-term accommodation or ILOs, then you can only use it for that purpose.
5 days or something, I think. Okay. The same, yeah. Okay.
All right. So I think if there's no other questions, we can wrap it up. All good. Oh, sorry. We have one last question, I think, from Gloria. What about the email from NDS regarding do I have to respond to confirming my interest? No, Gloria, you don't have to respond. You only have to respond to that email if you are not applying or if you are removing your SIL services or if you don't plan on providing sales services. Only then you have to reply to the email. If you are keeping the registration, you don't need to reply to it. Is there separate funding as SIL funding? We need SIL registration for ILO? No, you don't need SIL registration for ILO. It will come under 115. If you have the registration group 0115, you can provide ILO. You don't need the SIL services, SIL registration. And yes, the SIL's funding is separate for a participant that gets SIL funding. All right, so I think, yes, we should wrap it up now. It's been already an hour. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. If there are any other questions, I'll just leave my email down in the chat. You can reach out to me. And I think Cheryl has sent a booking link as well. If you want to book a meeting on my calendar, you can do that as well. It was great having so many people out here today, and hopefully you got some information out of me, and it will help in your audits and your day-to-day operations as well. Oh, good. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care, and I'll see you in one of the next ones. Bye.
Thank you, Tamer, and thanks everyone for the questions. So just a quick note, our webinars run fortnightly on Thursdays, so keep an eye on that schedule for the next date. And the gap between knowing this and acting on is where the risk sits. So thanks again for joining our fruitful webinar today. And that's it from us. Take care, everyone.
Thank
See
you.
you next
Bye.
session.